I've never had to quite do this before where I was asked to sum things up, and so I have to make notes on the fly. Not going to be as coherent as I normally am, but people who know me have never accused me of being too coherent anyway. Some bullet points that strike me from listening to all the speakers today. The first thing, contrary to some recent news reports and whatnot, school districts are not in good financial shape. So whoever is saying that, it's not accurate. We need our public, we need our legislature, our governor to recognize that we're not in good financial shape. Districts are surviving, I would say, this year. Surviving is not the same as thriving. We can't forget that we're coming off of 18 years of revenue caps that have already forced us to tighten our belts and to make drastic reductions and lower our services and lower quality. So the most recent reductions are only on top of that. We're getting by this year in Greenfield just like some of the other districts are because of stimulus money. Next year is going to be worse. So don't buy the myth that everything's okay. Another key point that I'm hearing that needs to be emphasized, there's a fundamental flaw in how we fund schools in Wisconsin. There is a fundamental flaw in how we fund public education. That needs to be the message. Not everything is all right. We can't put our heads in the sand and pretend that everything is all right. We have a funding system for students. Nowhere in the process does it consider the needs of our children. Think about that for a second. We've got formulas, we've got rebates, we've got discounts, we've got extra money here, we've got school levy credits there, we've got equalization, this, that, and the other thing, property taxes. Nowhere is the conversation about what do students need. How do you fund an entire state's education system without asking that question? What do our students need? Right now, we have a funding system that literally forces districts into making a decision. Do you want to spend your fund balance, hard-earned money that you've saved so that you don't have to borrow money, so you don't have to waste taxpayer money on interest because the state doesn't give you your money in a timely enough manner to make your payroll. So if you've worked your tail off to get that money saved, now you have a choice. Spend the money that you've saved, which then you'll get penalized for doing that by the state, or go to your community and say, raise taxes. That's how we fund in this state. We force districts to ask those questions. Spend reserves until you go bankrupt, or ask your local community to pay more, which you're pitting taxpayers against children. Who would come up with a system like that? Wisconsin. Sorry, again, I'm not being too coherent on these. We need to have a discussion about when will our funding match our expectations. You know, that's what we're getting at. For years and years and years I've advocated we need better funding, more funding, a penny for kids, any other types of ideas that are out there. We need more funding. I will probably go to my grave saying that. But I'm realistic enough also now to say if there isn't going to be more funding, then let's start talking about expectations. Public schools cannot look the way they have looked if we continue to defund education. So when are we going to have that conversation? What are we going to do so that our expectations can match up with the funding levels that we're being given? You can have really high expectations, but then you've got to fund accordingly. If you're going to fund us where we are right now, then the expectations have to be lower. And who's going to be the loser? It's the students. And I agree with the young man who built that sign. We can do better. We can't cut or defund our way to excellence. I heard that theme mentioned by Dr. Shaw from Racine. We need a new funding system for public education in this state. So let me wrap up. Thanks to technology, I keep this quote with me wherever I go. In 1978, and I apologize because most educators are very familiar with this, but people who may not be familiar with it, I think it's still relevant. And it's also kind of shocking and frightening and sad that this was being said in 1978, before I was even in high school. Ron Edmonds, the father of the effective school movement, said, "We can, whenever and wherever we choose, successfully teach all children whose schooling is of interest to us. We already know more than we need in order to do this." This was in 1978. "Whether we do it or not must finally depend on how we feel about the fact that we haven't so far." In 1988, when I was a first-year teacher, that quote was still in place, still applicable. 1998, when I was a principal, still applicable. 2008, I think I was just about a superintendent, still applicable. And now 2011-12, we still, going back to 1978, have not forced ourselves to ask that question. How do we feel about the fact that we are not funding schools so that we can meet the needs of every child. There is something wrong in this state when this is how we do business. So, I'd like to thank everybody for coming today. I'm not sure if there was anything else as far as just talking a little bit, milling around. If people want to talk, ask questions, they certainly have time to do that. You're welcome to stay. We appreciate your coming. Thanks. And if you have to go, that's great. We understand that too, but we really appreciate your time. Please keep the faith.